Hey, you want to start making a webtoon and don't know where to start? Then this video is for you. Cause now I'll give you a complete step-by-step showing how I produce my webtoon Kikronicles.
Wow!
Hello, I'm KikeLuzi, digital artist and creator of the webtoon Kikronicles. In this video, I want to show you a summary of the methods I use to develop my webtoon in the most practical way I've found. I'll be focusing on using Clip Studio tools and some other softwares, but you can use whatever is most practical for you. Nothing here should be considered an absolute truth, okay? Step 1. World building. Before you even start drawing your webtoon in Clip Studio, some things need to be planned beforehand. Creating the first idea that comes to mind tends to be something that can bring you momentary satisfaction, but it can also bring frustration and demotivation in the long run. To avoid that, start doing a pre-writing of your story. A quick summary with beginning, middle, and end. You can write the way you want. It'll be just for you to read and understand. Preferably, start with one-shot stories and leave longer stories for when you have more experience and control of your skills better. After that, it's time to rework the text and create a more elaborate script with a more detailed plot, already thinking about how each scene will be drawn. For not to mention that you shouldn't draw before finishing your story, it can be a great idea to create your characters to be used as reference when you draw. You don't want to forget how your characters are, do you? In addition to the drawing, you can save 3D models with the predefined bodies of your characters in the Clip Studio library to make everything even more practical. But don't let them dance too much when you flip their pose vertically. Sorry, it was stronger than me. Remember to back up your library regularly to save it in your Clip Studio account and avoid possible headaches in the future due to lost files. Step 2. Execution planning. Now that the environment where your narration takes place is already defined, how about streamlining the process? Organizing a 3D background scenario can help a lot. In Clip Studio Asset Store, you can download ready-made scenarios for your story. And if you can't find what you need, there are still sites like Sketchfab, where you can get a lot of cool stuff for free and import it into Clip Studio Paint through Clip Studio Modeler. But always remember to check the license of whatever you are downloading. If you want something more personal, I believe that learning to use 3D software or hiring a modeler can be a good investment if you're creating a long story. The Webtoon format is designed to make it easier to read comics on Android, like most manhwa we know, with the so-called infant canvas. That said, you need to plan on which platform you intend to publish your webtoon. Since my webtoon is published on more than one platform, I adapt the pages to the webtoon, which is where the maximum resolution of the pages are smaller. But you don't have to worry so much about it, since Webtoon itself automatically lowers the resolution of the pages to fit the platform standard. Each chapter of mine starts on an 800 per 50,000 pixels page, and is divided into 1,250 pixels pages. So, when a chapter needs to be much smaller than 50,000 pixels, I just need to decrease the total height of the canvas in a number that is multiple of 1250, and look at how well rounded it is. 50,000 pixels is the maximum size of a Clip Studio Paint page, and it is already quite long. Many people who make webtoons with large chapters divide the pages into smaller sizes to make it easier to view and draw. This is more of a preference if you are more bothered by linking separate pages or working on a gigantic long page. Step 3. Storyboard. With that decided, it's storyboard time. Here you show the general idea of your chapter. The ideal thing here is to make sketches between simple enough for you to do as quickly as possible and well enough done so that you don't get confused when you look again. In the storyboard, you can define the lines and the position of each panel. Note that the distribution of the lines and the distance from the panel give the scene a dramatic sense. The further away one speaks from the other, our brain tends to consider that more time has passed between scenes. Remember the 3D models we downloaded? Now is the time to use it. Models and scenery can be placed on the same plane, which makes it much easier when choosing a good angle for the scene. To limit the scenery on the page, just select where you want the scenery to appear and use a mask over a folder that contains it. So you can continue adjusting the scenario within what you predicted for the panel. Which, by the way, can be the next step, using Clip Studio Paint's frame tool. If you used a 3D in some other way and didn't import it into Clip Studio as shown above, you can still use the print screen. In newer versions of Windows, you can use the shortcut Windows Shift-S and select your screenshot window. But remember, tracing 3D models can accommodate your skills and impede your progress. 3D is used to speed up your work, but never stop practicing drawings without it, okay? Step 4. Art. When you're done with your page, it's finally time to make the most elaborate draft. Here it is already good to make drawings with more detailed shapes to facilitate and speed up the line art process as much as possible. For the final artwork, I usually use at least 4 separate layers. The idea is to make the art using the non-destructive editing method, which basically you draw on a different layer so you don't change the bottom layer image data. You can see the process of my drawings in several time-lapse videos here on the channel. I'll talk about it shortly. For the line art, I recommend you use the vector layer from Clip Studio Paint. With it, you can draw in the same way you do on a normal layer, but with the advantage of being able to edit your lines later with the operation tool and the object subtool. And besides, it has an additional advantage when it comes to coloring, which can speed up your work in a magnificent way. Just mark the line art layer as reference layer and use the paint bucket to paint. Then check the options, apply to connected pixels only, close gap and refer multiple. And leave tolerance, area scaling, and anti-aliasing set to 0. Then paint on a layer below and watch the magic happen.
Wow!
The top layers are for shading. The bottom one has the blending mode of linear burn, and the change layer color effect with a shade of purple from my color template. The top one is for ambient shading, with blending mode of multiply, and change layer color effect with the scene's ambient color, which is also already saved in my color template. Comment here if you would like a video on how to create a cool template. Remember the time-lapse videos I mentioned earlier? I'm putting them here on the card for you to see. Just open it in another tab, but stay here with me in this video that I still have some very important things to show you now, okay? Step 5. Publishing. You've finally finished drawing your story, and now it's time to do the split page export mentioned at the beginning of the video. And look how cool math is. Yes, I admit I just didn't use the exact dimensions from Webtoon because 1250 pixels seemed a lot more practical to split than 1280 pixels. Here I use and recommend you to use the JPEG format with quality 95. According to my tests, the quality doesn't change much compared to 100, but it has an absurd difference in size. After all, when you publish, there is a size limit for each chapter of Webtoon and Tapas. And don't forget that a smaller size is also better for pages to load faster for your readers. I have a separate page for each chapter, and in them I put subfolders for each language of the story, which at the moment are only English and Portuguese, and also a thumbnail, which makes viewing the folders easier. As for the thumbnail, I suggest you also have a pre-made file where you just add the image of the chapter, and the name if you prefer that too. Okay guys, I'm not a big Webtoon creator yet, but I hope I was able to help you at least a little. I'm still starting here on the channel, so if you have any suggestions, requests, or anything, please comment here and I'll be very happy to answer. If you like my tips, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if this video helped you in any way. Share with someone you think might also want to know how to make a Webtoon. If you want to know my Webtoon, you can read it in English through Webtoon and Tapas or in Portuguese through Fliptrue and Tapas too. Thank you for watching.